run this kind of it's like a documentary of 3 calls of me, Richard, and Taro discussing Clive and what we were going to do and what we did and why we did it, and then what we felt that was the impact on the story. This evening, in complete denial that Clive is anything like me or any members of my family, we're going to look at Clive from a scripting point of view, bottoming out Clive and the reasons that Clive does things to himself and to the personas, and what that means to the story that we're playing. So yeah, all to come. Like, I wanted to run this kind of it's like a documentary of 3 calls of me, Richard, and Taro discussing Clive and what we were going to do and what we did and why we did it, and then what we felt that was the impact on the story. But before we do that, I would like to sort of bookend that with like your ideas of what Clive is, or anything. Who do you think Clive is, and who is this person that the player is going to meet? I mean, maybe if you want to answer that, Joe, as well, that would be interesting.
I have no idea who Clive is. He's not a good guy. I can tell you that much.
You
Um,
sure about that?
yes, he's an arse. Um,
What else do you know about him?
he nearly died. That broke his brain. He's got lots of voices in his head, and he doesn't like them very much. That's what I sort of understand of him.
Okay, Taro, what's your reading of Clive?
My idea of him was that he's kind of, I mean, he developed these personas when he was a child, just as kind of like escapism almost, like imagining himself in like different, like living different lives as different people. But then as he's kind of got older, instead of, getting rid of his imaginary friends, they sort of grown up alongside him and kind of changed into their own people that are kind of outside of his control, but he's still able to kind of, I mean, who they are is outside of his control, but he still has control over them. And so he kind of torments them because of his like past like trauma and his opinion on people, which isn't very high because of his abandonment issues from his brother.
Yeah, I think that he tortures them because he's worried. I think they become so real.
Mm.
And this is one of the things we don't actually do at the moment, which I'm trying to figure out some things in the latest version of the Res Clip, is that they become so real. There's so much work. There's so much part of his life that he gets scared that they're going to leave him like everybody else did.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that thing of, I don't really know how to explain it. It's sort of maybe a bit of like a controversial topic as well, but I know like when people have like certain problems or like issues, those issues kind of become part of their identity, and so they're kind of reluctant to get rid of them or like heal from them. Where like, people that have like certain illnesses, they don't kind of, it becomes so much of a part of them that they kind of are scared of like not having that part of their life anymore, and like of just change, even if it's that change would be good for them.
Yeah, that ties into what one thing that I was thinking around the time that we were developing first parts of the original script, is this idea that we have these stories about ourselves that we tell and that we like hang on to, but they are really not that good for us.
Mm.
They are kind of illusory. They are illusory and potentially very dangerous. But they define us. They are our definitions of ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, like a while back when I read that book Haunted that I recommended to you, that I know there's a line in that where it's like, um, there's some stories that you use up, there's some stories that you use you up. It's kind of like the same context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was a good book, that. I liked it. Yeah, I think we're hitting the points. We're telling a story about Clive. We're having this kind of resolution, and the story unfolds. And it's also, hopefully, if we can understand hopefully, if it's kind of intriguing enough to pull us through the story and replaying and resolving different characters, brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think myself and Taro were talking about the idea of Clive and him being the villain, us seeing him as characters resolve. Characters resolving is getting all the way through and freeing them from the mirror somehow. Obviously, we've kind of experimented with bits of content, and we need to have a good think about it. And I think the conclusions we came to on the call were that we're going to need like an intro setup of Clive and the game and the characters somehow. We might need marketing at the front of that. And we've got some really good stuff from you already, Richard, with like some of those lines when we were talking about game shows and stuff, like Clive. There's some nice bits of dialogue we could use there. But then we probably want interstitial clips of Clive. They might only be like 10 seconds long or quite short, in some way echoing the resolution of characters, possibly furthering the story of Clive and having a visual progression to it, whether that is something to do with kind of coming out of a tunnel or seeing reflections. Tara had some nice ideas about like Clive walking down the street and looking in shop windows and seeing Janelle or whoever else. I mean, if we had more resources, we could probably do some pretty fancy stuff so that the clips could have their own natural order, and then we could bring in any character. But that's going to be quite hard. I think we're going to just have to be clever in how we arrange it. Yeah, and then the other things we talked about were the kind of in that call with the card game and possibly having a rock paper scissors type of trailer that's much more a little functional widget rather than the preview of the larger project which we have currently. So yeah, it's this idea of Clive being the villain, and you are playing to save the characters. Why, we don't exactly know yet, but Clive has these characters trapped in his head, and we are going to resolve them by playing the best hands possible for them, and that frees them from the mirror. And our scripts and our footage reflect all of that. It's just contextualizing those characters with Clive and with the player successfully, and having a meta narrative that kind of unfolds and starts and ends, I would say. Does that sound about what we were talking about the other day, Tara?
Yeah, that pretty much sounds about right.
And we could have these clips of Neil. We could have them on green screen to keep them really simple, and just like have sort of, they could be kind of special effectsy sort of shots, or they could be out in the world or whatever. We need to keep it simple. I think I can only really get Neil for like a good half or long half day, and yeah, it's a lot to think about.
Okay, I think the idea of Clive as the antagonist, as the villain. Didn't we discuss this before?
Yeah, but we've not really nailed it down.
Right.
And,
Okay.
and we've had like a massive name change as well.
Yeah, which I like, because if he's the villain, then the title Clive is a good guy.
Is brilliant.
Yeah, because he's not a good guy. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think that makes sense to me. I think you need an antagonist to play against as well.
Yeah, we never really had that.
Even though you're not, but you know what I mean. There is a rival. There's a villain. Yeah.
And it's like I don't know. Yeah. But sorry, you keep going.
Yeah, and I think so. I think that's really good. It's just so he's like collected these people, as he's like.
I don't know how they ended up in his head. We've got to make some visual material. I'm commissioning some student briefs from motion graphics people this week. I'm hoping to get somebody who'll come and kind of do a bunch of After Effects work. But Lee has done some green screen stuff, so I've got much better content now, which I could even do myself. But I like the idea that we go like Monty Python graphics, persons and people inside Clive's head. But I also need to shoot that footage as well, which is like massively important. We need like a product shot. We need product shots of Clive. We don't even know what Clive looks like. Obviously I've used the clips of Neil in his wife beater vest as a sort of actor, but I'm not totally happy with that footage. I mean, it could be worse, but it's not the best footage. I mean, it's all at 4K, so it's nice and it's green screen. But if we're going to need other stuff as well, we need to think about what this guy is going to look and be like.
You've broken up a bit there.
You back?
I've lost you. Okay. I lost you for
I think we're back now. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So I was saying we have this footage of Neil in a wife beater vest as a sort of actor meta character. I'm not sure if that's the best iteration of Clive. It was kind of useful and it was great that we had it. It's all at 4K and green screen and it kind of looks okay, but it's maybe not. I mean, we need to think about who Clive is, what he looks like. And
I think Clive needs to be developed. I think that's what character-wise, with a timeline, biography, all the hard graft all the other characters have had, because he feels very flaky at the moment.
Unless he can just be a very flaky, thin, kind of very angry man. I mean, I'm not trying to get out the work. I'm just
no. I'm thinking. Yeah, you can have in that, but the more you've got about him, the better. The more you know about him, the better. The more you can use in marketing or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing in the background is that we've commissioned somebody to do social media and social media advertising.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be really good. And we're going to try and do some early access or early sales stuff. But I think once the thing is released, we might want to be doing a Steam campaign. I think we might sell more eventually on Steam than we will on mobile, and having a crowdfunding campaign for it to go on Steam as a widescreen thing, moving all the stuff around, like console and Steam, and doing extra characters. Because I think if people like it, I think they will part with some dosh to see more characters. And so that we always want the opportunity to do more, I would say. I'm just kind of putting that one out there.
So it's Clive.
Clive is 53-ish, white male, dodgy, could get cancelled by anybody. Maybe that's an interesting one. Cancelled, 9 lives, all that sort of stuff's kind of good. But I think he's angry, but then I don't want to play like into an angry white male stereotype. That could really be problematic.
There's too many of them anyway, aren't there? So.
There are. I mean, we want to be subversive as much as possible, but then do we want...
Does he have the... No, he wouldn't do. But does he have these people locked up in a cellar somewhere? in real life.
No, because they're his own. Well, metaphorically, that is what is happening, but not in reality. I mean, we could say that he does, but then they all look exactly like him. As he given them.
Yeah, but that's in his head. He wants everybody to look like him.
Well, that's an interesting one. He wants everybody to look like him.
So that's what there must be a mental state that is. I don't know what it is, but there must be. If you're going to get through the world, if you think everybody looks like you.
Yes,
doppelganger. I suppose doppelganger, but that's only one. I'm just ranting. Don't worry, doppel.
There is another thing. I mean, narcissism is big thematic thing, which I didn't think too much about when we were writing it, but Neil like plumbed the depths of it for his characters, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking at some stuff here. There was another kind of theory about like trapping personas and letting them go. I mean, the classic is the shadow, isn't it? Is that you don't let the shadow out because it's so terrifying for you to see aspects of your own character that are weak or different or whatever. But by showing them to the light, you free yourself. I mean, that's like classic psychotherapy. And there is a kind of logic to it, but it's making it I don't know if that logic works, and it's making it dramatic. I mean, there is also a bunch of schools of thoughts around this sort of stuff and trapped characters. And
you see, what we don't have is none of the characters know about Clive, do they? There's no references to it. They don't say, "Oh, he's got me" or whatever.
They don't. We could possibly pick up a bit of extra audio in character voice, but we don't have that right now. No.
So they're unaware. If he is the villain, they're unaware that he's the villain.
But they are trapped, and we have talked about having the kind of game show voice, a character who is the mirror. I don't want to add more in, but let's just kind of play around with what we have until we understand it. So, I mean, a sparkly shoe and a shirt with a kind of bow tie hanging off and some kind of weird sparkly spectacles or something. Game show Clive, maybe, or it could just be done in voice, or it could just be done in pictures. I don't know.
If Clive is the antagonist, and like he's playing against you, is he like, I mean, in the game part, is he choosing the cards or the gags that go against the gag you choose?
He could well be,
because it could be that he's trying to keep all of these different personalities in conflict, because that way, if they're all fighting each other, like none of them are going to become dominant or like take over Clive.
Yeah. But we also have this context of the game show. So they are kind of trapped in a game show and they can only win and escape with your help. That's the kind of frame at the moment, which can change.
Well, I mean, Clive could always be, I guess, the host or the one that's like orchestrating the game show.
Yeah. So computer choices are Clive's choices.
I mean, you could even have it that if he's an antagonist, he's like trying to rig it in his favor or something like that.
Yeah. I can't quite conceive how he would rig the rules and how that would work within the rules of our game, but we can definitely flirt that idea around. We can. It would add to the gamification of it ultimately. I just can't quite conceive it until we get our prototypes up to date, I think. But it's an interesting idea. So he's the cheat. He's cheating to keep everybody from winning.
Mm.
And I mean, so Clive, going to his core character, if he's a white male, I keep going to the kind of redundancy of the 53-year-old white male. But it's redundancy versus like they have, 53-year-old white males have all the power in the world, but they've kind of, in a way, they've had kind of emotional power taken away by kind of like the whole cancelling thing. But still, they are the dominant force in the world. I mean, I'm talking in very broad headlines to see what is there. And yeah, I just don't know about cancelling Clive. Do you want to cancel Clive?
Or does he think he's doing the right thing?
All villains do somehow, don't they?
Yeah, but and is he actually doing the right thing, and we're doing the wrong thing? By playing the game is the wrong thing to do. And just leave him be with his 9 characters. What are we messing with his head for?
Don't know. Something I quite like the idea of cancelling Clive, but then
I hate all that, but yeah,
I do, but it's just so now.
It's not very and anti-establishment or whatever, is it? It's almost the establishment now, and it cancelling things.
Yeah.
God.
Why make a game about 53-year-old white male?
If, like you said, like Clive's had his emotional power taken away from him, that kind of fits with what we have, in that if all the characters are versions of himself that he's like repressed because he feels like he can't be anyone else.
I mean, I like it, and I think there's some drama there, but I think it's playing to a cliched, a horrible cliche that, like, a white male who's 53 saying that or acting like he's had his emotional power taken away when he is the dominant force in the world is like a terribly, like, it's conflicted the wrong way around in a way. And we do, yeah. I mean, I have played around with the idea of, like, it could be a female, but then we got to change the fucking name again, and we don't have Neil as the thing. I think the power of, like, having Neil with all these other Neils in his head, that's the power of it. It's just getting a decent frame for it that isn't gonna play wrong. It needs to play really right. And I mean, what stories are there about sort of middle-aged men that are?
Houellebecq's quite good at all that, isn't he?
Houellebecq, yeah. And there was a Swedish one upstairs, the man upstairs or something. I can't remember exactly what that was.
I think it's still like relatively rare in games to have like older characters.
Yeah.
Like most characters are still on the younger side.
And in literature, in film, really. But
I think it's still much more common in literature and film. Like in games, it's usually young protagonists. And I also think in games, there's not really a lot of stories about like men specifically expressing their emotions. So we kind of have that to work with.
Does he start off as someone who's what we've just discussed and then become someone else as the game goes on?
Redemption from that horrible character would be great. I think. I mean, I think that's the only way to go, isn't it? Oh my God! Why?
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't that the idea that he would take on some aspect of
Each character as they're freed.
Mm,
Yeah. So Tell frees himself from his dead brother as he goes. Seth frees himself from himself in a way. Algie frees himself from his own kind of rigorous situation. Adam frees himself from the ghost of his dead wife. Janelle frees herself from the male version of herself who's holding her back. Emmanuel, he claims some successes, I think. Bernard is kind of freed from himself. Mal is freed from the idea that he should only be really searching for his dad rather than appreciating his mother. And Senna, I can't actually remember what his redemption is.
I mean, I kind of coming to terms with like existential
Yeah,
issues.
why not?
Okay, that's yeah. So you're actually helping Clive, aren't you? Even if you're are you aware of that as the player?
No, I don't think at the beginning. At the beginning, you're saving the characters.
Yeah,
Clive has to be a nasty piece
freeing
of
them.
shit,
Yeah,
doesn't he? And you free the characters, and by freeing the characters, you clear it for Clive ultimately as well.
so by the end of the game, Clive is a good guy.
Yeah, but he doesn't start as a good guy.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I've
That makes sense to me.
lost you.
Hello, hello, hello.
I can still hear you.
Can you hear me, Richard?
Oh, I'm back now, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I hear you now. Yeah. So by
Sorry.
the end of the so by the end of the game, Clive is a good guy.
Yeah. Without it being too cheeseball, of course. But I think that kind of action and cause and effect type of thing in games is quite good. I mean, how to make it non-linear, I'm not exactly sure. We could have some floating audios. We could also kind of float edits so that there is some element of, like, we could cut together two clips so it feels like it's totally in response to the character who's been freed, but actually half of it is in response to the character who's been freed, and half of it is this kind of unfolding narrative that the more those characters are gone, the better Clive is going to be in the world.
So I mean, I remember in one of the original texts we had, it said something like the characters are who he could be or who he could have been.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if we think of that in kind of a more literal sense, if like Clive is kind of becoming one of the characters, I mean, that doesn't really work with everyone. Because essentially like Janelle or Senna are someone he could be. Emmanuel is someone he could have been if he was born in a different country, a different situation. So maybe the closure that he's searching for is just kind of coming to terms with, I could still be this, or if I was this, how would I be different?
Yeah. And perhaps ultimately, by the time of freeing 9 characters, or actually 8, because once there's, well, having one character left is quite an interesting scenario that we'll have to think about separately. But ultimately, he becomes a better version of himself that has all the best bits of those actually horrible narcissistic characters, manages to get something to redeem himself from those.
Maybe it's worth thinking about how. Maybe it's worth thinking about it from the perspective of each individual character then. So like what's Clive's conflict with that, with each individual character? Like what does he gain from confronting that character or coming to terms with them?
Yeah. I think if we were to go away and do a bit of writing between like individually and bring it back together, I'm sure we'd start to find bits that start to fit together and some kind of through lines on it. Like you're saying, it's kind of response to characters, taking on board characters, personas, not, and it is final redemption from bad guy to good guy. It's those things, and then kind of trying to figure out some. I mean, we can also, if we need to, get some extra bits of audio by each character. I think it's still a bit tough. It'd be better if we didn't, but you know, we can give it a go.
I mean, one other thing that keeps coming to mind is, I mean, I don't know if this is even like relevant, but it might give some inspiration, is the talk about like persona and shadow and stuff is like a Carl Jung thing. And the thing I always remember about Carl Jung is he had like a near-death experience. It's from a knee injury. I don't know how that works, but when he had his near-death experience, he's like, it's one of the most famous near-death experiences in that he kind of saw like the Earth from space. He like spoke with his dead wife, or so he claims. And then
that's all pretty good shit for us, isn't it? I think the
but
near-death
like
experience could kind of really explain. We could make Clive like really, really bad, and then kind of all put it all in the context of the near-death experience, and then unfolding and resolving via this game. I think that would work quite well. How, I'm not exactly sure, but kind of thematically it seems to fit. What do you think, Richard?
So are we saying that a near-death experience triggers this, why he suddenly collects 9 or invents 9
Yeah.
strange characters?
And I would say play it out in a non-linear way. So we just start with like, in these clips, because I see it, maybe there's a dozen or 15 clips, 9 of which relate to other characters. We've got a bit of an intro, and we've got the 9 characters and some sort of resolution there or thereabouts. Like we want to start with him just being really bad, and we want to explain the near-death experience near the end as a way to recontextualize all that stuff. But that's all really useful, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that could be what prompts him to see like all the people he could have been or who he could become. So,
I mean, it's a nice chance for some funky sort of video editing as well, which I find when I've got time to actually do that stuff, it really helps drive the whole thing, is like working with these really nice performances and black and white videos from Neil with a bit of text and sound effects. Like that's when, for me, the whole thing is starting to come together in terms of my vision of it. And the more time I got, the more I got to go on with that sort of stuff, the better. I mean, you know, the interactive stuff's coming together with Taro and Joe now as well in a more cohesive way. So it's all good, I think. And yeah, we could kind of, you know, you can have something like, see all those faces just exploding in front of you and like in black and white, and you don't know why you see them until much later, but that's part of the intro. Would be really nice. And we can kind of tail the intro like out into marketing. So there's some of the new trailers that gets us into the game where Clive, Clive is a good guy, but well, Clive is a good guy, is he? And we're asking ourselves those questions, and he has to be like really playing. I always like the idea of a petty god, like really him playing petty god to these characters, but like really mean, really mean. And in a way, I think there's a possibility of bringing all of the ideas together for Clive potentially in some way. I think there's different elements, but I think it could possibly all work together. I kind of like the idea of him in these interstitial clips, which we need 9 of. Obviously, it's kind of delivering character and backstory, but also resolving those characters. I thought, what if those were kind of individual little kind of crazy things that happen, a bit like what Taro's thing is, like the urgent phone battery recall, and then we picture in picture the character who's just resolved potentially, which means we could use reflections, what's on the phone, lots of different ways to resolve that particular character that you've just finished, if you know what I mean. That's one idea I've got at the moment. But yeah, how are your feelings about it, about the ideas and the content?
I like the exploding phone, but it made me laugh. So that's back to the question of tone.
Yeah.
And also I didn't Tara, I didn't quite get your Clive having a wife and a son. That didn't sound like Clive to me. I've always seen him as a loner.
Yeah.
Living a very solitary life because he can't be normal. But I think you've got something, because if he was normal and then his phone exploded and then he lost everything, I don't know. It just
But I
feels.
like your Red Bull sibling rivalry near death experience. Got like it's really powerful, and I think that the exploding phone could be like an incident, a mishap, a gag that happens to Clive. Like I think if we had like 9 different, we've got his kind of narrative unfolding, but if we have 9 different short clips, like because that thing with Clive's phone, like a lot of that can be kind of screenshot stuff, and then you've got Neil's reaction and the special effects or something. I think it can be made easy to shoot because of what he's doing on the phone potentially. I really like the brother stuff in terms of a near-death experience. I think it's really, really powerful. I get whether we need to define the tone and we need to roll in the mirror and all those 9 characters to that. But yeah, that's my thinking. But it's all up for grabs. What's your thoughts, Taro?
Yeah, I mean, again, I wasn't really sure what kind of tone we were going for, because I kind of went a bit silly with mine. I know like Richard's was like very dark.
Number 1.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go and shoot myself.
But I think the value in I suppose I think I said like the game tone, a light-hearted treatment with a dark story. So
Yeah,
if you it's just
like
messing with the
comedy.
player, isn't it? If if you're playing this game, it's a bit light-hearted. Suddenly there's a reveal that this guy's had terrible trauma.
Yeah.
It just changes gear, which I think is really good. So
Yeah,
you've got him prancing around it.
I
Yeah,
do
you've got
like
him
the
prancing
idea of it
around.
being kind of like dark comedy, kind of. Um, and it's hard to explain. I know when I was writing mine, I was trying to make it kind of um like he's kind of like a fucked up guy, but he's not beyond redemption, kind of. Um, but yeah, that kind of like dark kind of comedy where this dude's life's a mess, but it's kind of like a mess in like a funny way. I feel like it's kind of easy to forgive someone like that.
I mean, I like the extremes of it in a way. I mean, before Tara sent his thing in, I was like, because I had this kind of vision of like a reality show or a game show presenter, slightly disheveled, but kind of rambunctious and rambling and sort of easy to like, but he's also got this side that is just fucking full of rage, and you see him unloading on people, and you're just like, this guy's such a cunt. But there's certain part of you like, so we've got this kind of like depth to him. But I also think that it could be, we could have kind of these scenes could be scenes from a life. At one point, he could have had a wife and a kid, and then maybe he hasn't now, age 53. Like, I think there's a lot that we can roll in terms of a sort of complex life of a character. I like the idea of a black comedy tone. What I definitely don't want to get into is that kind of, there's a style of writing which I can most directly point to in games. It's very irreverent and kind of like an in-joke. There was a game I played called Open World or Open, I can't remember, Outer World. There's just a kind of
Oh yeah, yeah.
tone of written kind of dialogue sometimes that I really don't like in games, and I don't want to go there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of like everything has to be like a quip.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's horrible. It's
Uh,
really like, I find it really offensive
mm.
to my sort of sensibility, really. So I really like black comedy. I like extremes. I think, I don't know. I like the idea that obviously we need to sort of nail a narrative, but that only needs to really have a beginning, a reveal, and an end. And everything else could be scenes, I think, from Clive's life, which also have a reflection somewhere in that picture, in that video, so that at certain, like, if he's in a thing with his wife and we see him stealing his kids' drugs and, like, I don't know, sort of snorting his kids' cocaine or some crazy shit like that. And he looks in the mirror, and in the mirror is either Tell, Seth, Algie, whoever has just kind of redeemed in the game. That's who we see in that reflection. And I think that would tie it together really nice. And I'm pretty sure we can do that technically, but it means we need a bunch of scenes from a life that are kind of somewhat easy to shoot or organize.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I like the game show idea as well, like the game show host. Like
could just
if
be part of his life at one point.
I mean, because if he's kind of like delusional, he kind of like sees himself as this kind of game show host. You kind of expect a game show host to be sort of like classy and likable, but he's just kind of the complete opposite. And so you have that contrast between like visually how he looks and how he acts.
Yeah, I like all of that.
Mm.
What are you thinking, Richard?
I'm thinking he's the antagonist, so I don't want to like him to start with. I don't want him.
Yeah.
I don't want anything. I want to take him on. I want to challenge him. I want to beat him because he's a creep, and he's that we. This is what I thought we were all sort of kind of agreeing on, and then it's about these little slices of life. It's it's what they tell us. What are they going to make us have empathy for him? But is it too early to have empathy if we're still playing?
Over time, we can order those 9 scenes though, and that is order
9.
of Clive's life. Well, we need intro, then we need 9 resolving scenes for the characters, which involve Clive and reflections, and then we can have ending for Clive's story as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but those 9 scenes can play in the order that we determine. So Clive can start as an absolute swine. We can around play through 3. We can see the red ball somewhere. Like by 5, maybe there is a glimmer of like, why is Clive keeping these in his head? And is there something more beyond this very angry person who keeps having mishaps and seeing these reflections as they go? So by the end of like 9, or by the end of 8, we might see that or understand that scene of the cracked ice and stuff. So that can have a timed release in terms of what those scenes are and how we release them, so long as there is space to post in any reflection from any character in that scene somehow as a resolving thing for those characters.
You can also have the cracked ice be like the cracked mirror as well. I feel like that works too.
Yeah, that's good.
Also, I think you mentioned something about like maybe you tilt the phone, you see the red ball come past, but like small kind of visual hints like that along the way, I think can really add to it, especially if they're like things that people might not find straight away, because maybe someone on the internet like finds it and it's kind of like a secret. And
Easter eggy sort of thing.
Because I think that's one of the things that would get people more interested in like replaying the game, to kind of see if there's any other like secrets or like strange interactions that you could do. And if we could think of a few more of those, I think that would be good as well.
Yeah. So don't know. I mean, are we on the same page between us, or are you still got worries that we're making him too likable, Richard?
What has he got a job? It's just throwing me. It's just throwing me into this. I really never saw him, but I quite like the idea that he's got a wife and a kid. I always thought he was totally alone with his world, obsessed with his creations, kind of just outsider, really. So now this has opened up a whole new thing that, which I think I like.
I mean, I imagined him as having like a wife and a kid, but he's kind of like they're still around. They're still like around him, but they're just kind of completely emotionally detached from each other.
I mean, we literally cannot get into anything complicated in terms of shooting. Like, we have to really focus on Clive. But there's no reason why you can't hear them off screen or understand their presence. But we just have got very little resources for shooting and getting more actors in, I think. But I think we could do it if we're smart. And
Yeah, I don't think they'd need to like appear on camera at any point. I mean, even as voices, I think he could just be kind of. It's kind of something that's just like happened to him rather than he's had any like involvement in it. It's like he doesn't really know what he's doing, or he's never really known what he's doing in life. It's just something that's happened to him rather than something he's been involved in.
yeah,
So at the end, when we've made him better, or whatever you want to call it, what are his thoughts on his family?
I guess it would kind of depend on which character he's sort of internalized at that point. Because I know like the other individual personalities I mean, they kind of all have different relationships with like a significant other. So it could kind of be influenced by that, or
Yeah, I think it's all right. I think it's good. Okay. So the exploding phone. I mean, to me, that's like a big moment. And is it a trigger? Is it the like turning point? Blah blah blah. Or is that the thing that sparks off this whole? You know, does it trigger the trauma, if you like, that he's got?
yeah, I mean, if we're combining the ideas,
Yeah,
it could be that. I mean, originally I thought when he gets like the phone explodes, he gets like the shrapnel stuck in his head, and that's kind of like where he's like receiving these like weird signals from, or so he thinks. And like whether that's in his imagination or that's real is kind of intentionally vague. But if maybe the exploding phone's what triggers his trauma, it like makes him remember the incident on the ice or something.
I don't think we should have two incidents. I think that's dangerous potentially. Gets
I thought
confusing.
I thought you wanted all three.
No, well, I thought of the exploding phone as like one of the mishaps that occur in the nine. So,
Oh, I
so
see. Right. Yeah,
the
yeah.
near-death experience, which triggers like his ability to go so far inside himself that he has nine different other characters in there with him. That is the ice and the red ball, I would say. And the phone exploding is one of these other kind of crazy things that happened to him. I mean, I don't know if that kind of takes it out of the full context of the way that Taro's written it, but it's such a nice scene, and hopefully we could get somebody to do it. So it has that kind of like, you see the scrolling of urgent phone battery recall, please read, depraved porn site. He's watching a light. He sees a ghostly face, which is Tell, Seth, or whatever, saying, oh, yeah, and then it just goes off, and that's the interstitial clip.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just sort of responding to what we've got on the table, really, and maybe
Yeah.
it's not the best way forwards. But I don't. Yeah, I mean, we only want one near-death experience as trigger, but everything else could be a near-death experience, so long as it has a reflection, so long as we have the opportunity to paste in this other character who we've resolved.
Yeah. I think the near death has to be childhood, deep rooted trauma
Yeah,
the brother thing as well works with all the
It ties in really nice.
the,
And then this other thing that we have a series of mishaps and crazy scenes from his life involving kind of real life reflections where we paste on our characters. And some of it's just like, I mean, it can't all be fun, but you know, it's telling the story, it's getting us to understand Clive more over X amount of clips. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe the exploding phone is more impactful, and maybe the near-death experience is maybe the near-death experience is the thing that triggers all of the characters and his internalization. Maybe the near phone, the phone exploding is what starts our part of the story, which I think comes back to what you were saying, Richard. But
yeah.
Yeah, I know one thing I was being conscious of is I didn't want to make anything that would be like an excuse for him to kind of be an asshole. Like, oh, this guy's got like trauma, so you should forgive him kind of ending.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Where it's kind of like you kind of get an ending where it's like you have this character and then they're kind of an ass, but it's like, oh, they've had this trauma, so it's okay that they're like this. I didn't think. I mean, I didn't want to do something where that was kind of like an excuse.
well, we have. I think that's part of the player's understanding of Clive. But the other thing is there's maybe two other things in terms of an ending that's resolved properly. One is like the player's involvement of freeing the characters, which is like unleashing the shadows or whatever else. And then there is Clive kind of forgiving either somebody else or himself, or some way of him triggered by you kind of being free, but not necessarily total forgiveness, because we know that he had a rough time. But
So now we have a Clive as a character. We're playing the game and we've got these other 9 characters in his head.
and we're not Clive.
No. So are we trying to delete them all so that he's
Trying to
himself?
free them.
So yeah, whatever. So he's free of them.
Yeah. Or are we freeing them for them?
I thought we were freeing them for them.
Yeah, I do. Rather than,
But they don't really exist, do they?
They do.
He does now. Clive does. He's like,
Clive does exist, and those characters are real enough to, because we have to play as one of them, so we have to believe them enough for that. And I think if we do get to resolve them and free them and redeem them, then they're going to say their last lines to Clive in that video as a reflection. It's going to be ace. I think it's really, because it's all written to get to that point where they say goodbye, or they escape the mirror, or it's going to work really, really nice if we can get it to do that. But we are freeing them for their sake, because being trapped by Clive is not much fun. I mean, we may have to introduce some other kind of layer of pain to those characters within the game. I thought, but I think there's stuff we could just do with sound. Like, they could just all be screeching a little bit every now and then, and as within the game, just like the pain of being in Clive's head, being in this kind of endless loop of reality game show. I think we can show that without having to write too much extra stuff, with sound effects, visuals, and just sensation, really. I mean, I hope I'm not wrong with that, but I don't think we need to write in anything extra.
So at the end of it, Clive is what? He's free as well, isn't he?
He is free as a byproduct of us winning the game and freeing those characters. So our number one thing is winning the game.
Yeah.
That is our numero uno goal. That frees the 9 characters, which releases Clive from his own nonsense, which came from a trauma when he was a kid, but nonetheless, he has been trapped by that. But that isn't necessarily to forgive him. So I don't know how we resolve Clive's story. But I mean, we could always kind of do a sickly sweet treacle ending, and then like Clive's going, check this guy, and there's a new character there at the end, like he's going, I got another. Which plays into our crowdfunding campaign, which is that we're going to do 3 more characters if you raise 10 grand for us. We're going to put it on Steam with 3 more characters.
I know, like when I got the original demo, like the text to speech one, the original idea was I thought that whichever personality wins would kind of overwrite Clive. Or I mean, I know Clive wasn't a thing then, but it would kind of become like the dominant kind of personality.
It is a nice idea, that, but the problem is that I think, given that we've kind of rejigged the experience to make players play as a character, and that's how we want them to play, because if they're on the outside, the level of engagement is like seriously low and people don't know exactly what they're doing, then really we're going to want them to play through each of the 9 characters to get to the resolution.
Right.
So you get 9 different character resolves, and then you get a completist version. So you can play it. We still don't know how long like one character playthrough is going to be, but yeah, I mean that's my thinking based on everything that's in play at the moment in terms of the game and the writing, is that there are 9 different versions through to save the 9 different characters, and at the end of that, there is a final resolve, which I guess is Clive's resolution or twist or whatever. So yeah, I mean, as for imprinting the character, I don't know. I mean, it still could work, but I wouldn't try and lead with it.
Okay. The other thing I was trying to think of as well, and I did write a bit of it in my thing, is like it's like the relevancy of the 9 personalities. Like how does he, like why is it those people? Like is there any sort of event that leads Clive to create these specific
Well, we still
alternate
have to
versions of himself?
rewrite the character cards and bullets, and that's a chance to do a bit more on that. But also, I mean, it's up to the players to some extent to imagine those links. Like a 53-year-old man invents a failed TV writer, his dead brother, a priest, a failed priest, no less, a nurse who lost his wife 10 years ago, a transsexual woman, a foreigner, a history teacher who's the father of one of these characters, an esports gamer who's in Thailand hooking up with prostitutes, and a future version. I mean, I think it comes back to what you keep coming back to, Taro, which is this is every version of self that might have been or still might be, and I think that's all it needs to be. As Clive being a 53-year-old white male or something, that's.
I mean, maybe it's a bit of a diversion as well, but I know when I was coming up with ideas. Like I was thinking of like the concept of like a tulpa. If
A
you've
what?
heard of that, it's a tulpa. It's kind of like it's like a thing where, people claim to have like created like a partition in their consciousness. So like there's like another person that like lives in their head.
I just got a brilliant scene with like Clive wearing like a hippie wig, sitting sort of in a circle of candles, like talking like inside his own head, talking about like being the tulpa. It just gives me a visual scene. I love it, but I don't know conceptually if it needs to be like ingrained into the thing, but it gives me a very funny scene that I see Clive kind of, when he was trying to find himself.
Mm.
It's funny
Yeah,
that
because
because I saw Clive enter a toilet, and there's like 9 cubicles, and they're the 9, and he opens one and steps in and then comes out, and I don't know, that it just felt more. There's petitions there. There's like, and it's seedy and gross, and
Yeah, well, we've got some nice visual ideas for stuff coming out. It's great. I don't know, Tara. We obviously we've kind of lambasted your concept, but what were you thinking further than that?
I mean, yeah, I was just the concept in general that was kind of like interesting because I know there's like people that like believe they can do that, and then the other personality kind of, because it's like a different person, they just sort of lose control of it, and now they've got this voice in their head that they're not.
Or 9? Yeah.
Yeah,
have you
I
seen
think,
Magic?
magic.
Magic is a guy who's got a ventriloquist dummy.
oh my God, Anthony Hopkins, based
There's,
on Heat of the Night, which is
yeah,
not.
exactly, yeah, and there's and then the dummy takes over.
Yeah, I mean, we could almost do something like that as one of them. I think all these things of self and kind of partitioned self, mirrored self, exiled self, shadow self,
Yeah,
avatar self. These are all up for grabs. Like and that's the territory we're in. We just need to make it visually strong, enough room to cut and paste in the reflected version, the character who's resolving, and to have a sort of meta narrative of Clive that unfolds. But I think we could all probably write some scenes and then work to sort of rationalize them into like a bunch of 9 with some intro and outro stuff potentially. Unless any of us feel like we're on the wrong track with this, I think this is all quite good stuff, really.
it feels right. It feels good. I think I think it is writing it, getting the 9 scenes, maybe write 15 or whatever.
If
And
we
then
all write 5, then
yeah,
we're
5
in a
each,
good
or
place.
and just and then just like brainstorm it and do what
Yeah,
we script meeting and
it
whatever.
it has to relate to the Clive. Well, I mean, are we decided that Clive has lived a full life, crazy? His near-death experience was the kid, the ball, all of that sort of the elder brother, the ball on the pond, the red ball, um, and that maybe he has a wife and kids. That's he's disassociated from them. He's had jobs. Maybe he fantasizes about being a reality TV show host. Maybe he had an audition once. Maybe he had a mind to be a nurse once. Maybe he was one of these gulper, or he wanted to kind of explore that thing. So we just go for it and like put our 5 best scenes in the hat, and then we'll kind of shake them out next week or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. It's great though.
Yeah.
I'm really liking it. And I'm liking this kind of placeholder media thing with the reflection. Like, you could almost do a ventriloquist dummy if the last shot is a reveal, but then we have 9 different versions of that shot for each character pasted somehow as the ventriloquist dummy is either Tell, Seth, Algie. I don't know, that might be hard to do, but that's the kind of donut type of media we want. Like, he's looking at the phone before it explodes, and on that phone is Janelle, Emmanuel, Senna, or whoever else saying their last line, saying, "Thank you for freeing me from the mirror." Whatever, it could be really good fun and very tied. It ties those scenes so well to the player freeing those characters. It'd be ace.
And is that the phone blowing up at the end when he?
Sorry, what was that, Taro?
Was that the phone blowing up at the end when he went, or was that just a general kind of revelation explosion?
That was the phone blowing up. But
Okay.
we can have it any which way you want.
I think if you want to have it at the end, the phone explosion, then you could kind of just have those emails about the battery dotted about throughout the.
It might work. The phone explosion might well work at the end. It's a kind of dramatic payoff to this kind of crazy story, and maybe he doesn't die, but he's like battered, bruised, and ready to take the world seriously and in reality for the first time.
Yeah, I think that could work because you kind of get to keep the phone explosion, but it doesn't like overcomplicate the other near-death experience.
Yeah. So we have the near-death experience, which is what triggers the 9 characters, and maybe the phone blowing up is the end of the 9 characters in a way, or it's the end of our story of Clive.
Okay.
So, I mean, what I did was went through everybody's stuff and tried to arrange it in terms of backstory, context, ending, wrong way, and these resolution scenarios which have to feature a reflection or some kind of reflection of Clive that turns into one of the characters or something. And that has to be live. It can't. Those kind of go out in order, but they have to be. Or we can jumble them up a little bit, but we can tell those 9 parts of Clive's life in order. But the characters who come on could be whoever won, so they will change. That has to be kind of live. So the backstory is the near fatal accident, which Richard's NDE2, and in separate conversations I think me and Taro had about context, we were sort of experimenting with like the point in time after the NDE where the characters come to life at the same age as him, age 10, which I think kind of works quite well. I mean, it says in there that he plays his life as these personas, but we don't actually see that at the moment. It might be something we could kind of add in or not. I don't know. I mean, we don't have to do too much work as long as it all hangs together. It's still a game with a narrative around it. So yeah, but he imagines these faces into being whilst he's recuperating, and then they serve as an escape for him, and also a reason for him perhaps to become more disassociated from his own life as he grows up. And the duo round section is what he constructs at a certain point in time to stop the personas leaving him, because it becomes so developed. They become so rich as characters that he fears that they are going to leave him, like either his brother left him or his mother or his dad or somebody in the family around the time of the near-death experience. So that's kind of a couple of bits of backstory there. I've tried to put it in, but I don't know if I put it in the right place, but we shall see anyway. So we got marketing clips of the characters and the man jumping, Clive jumping on his own face on the face of a phone. Thought it might be quite funny to have the phone in the green screen studio. But anyway, that's an in joke perhaps that only I will get. But also everything's green. We also have this idea of the green room, which is also kind of quite interesting. So then there's a few things in the beginning, like the game intro. Like I wondered what sends us into the mirror. So I wrote something. I'm not sure if it's the right thing. I kind of saw, and it's completely doesn't fit any context, but like the idea of like two underpasses in a way. Like you see at the side of motorways, you see underpasses, and there's two kind of entrances. Clive's in front of one, behaving extremely weirdly, and you just cannot get past him. So you go down the other one, and that's like a portal to going into the mirror. But that doesn't really work. It kind of works functionally, but I'm not sure if it's a very good idea. I then wondered about like having a mirror and like going into one side of it. Clive's kind of obscuring one side of it. I don't know. I just wondered about something to get into the game. And then there's also like going into the mirror game. So we've got like a game intro and possibly the mirror. They need to possibly go together. It's just kind of spitballing ideas purely at that moment in time. Then we've got the duo round, and you're playing as a character. And this is the looping reality show that Clive has invented. So if and when you do get out of it, you're gonna encounter Clive, and possibly in the second half in the Royale rounds be playing against Clive, who may be avataring other characters that you have to beat. And me and Taro are having separate conversations about that kind of user experience and the gameplay of all of that. So I think yeah, I have the scene in bed here, but I don't think it's the right place for it. I've just sort of shoehorned it in so that we have it early in our sort of document. I think it'll need a bit of rearranging this, but I just wanted to get a bunch of ideas down in a certain order. So then we go into the second half, which is Royale, playing against everyone else, jacked up against Clive, and you resolve your chosen character and you go to the res clips, or you fail your chosen character, and that is Taro's clip 6, which is the phone explodes and ends up in his head with a character that you failed with talking on it. Then we get into like what happens if you get through the game and you resolve each character. Each one of these is kind of got some little bit of story and a reflection. So the first one is police interview room. He's at a table on his own, and you see shadowy cops discussing the details of his incident. Clive looks at the mirror, and instead of seeing himself, he sees X character. Second one, I should also state there's 9 of these listed here, but there might only, it's difficult to know how that is going to break down in terms of resolving the characters and whether we resolve all 9, because at the end you end up with like 1 left. And that's a bit weird. And we could also have the idea that 1 person is left in the mirror or changes places with Clive or something. So we've got 9 resolutions, but we might only need 7 or 8 ultimately. Resolution 2 is Angry Man Clive on the busy streets of the city. He ends up in front of an electrical store with many screens, all showing him. I saw somebody do this with a special effects shot, and it looked really great, actually. It was like models of TV and screens and all that sort of thing, just all showing like towers of it in a window. And it's an old-fashioned kind of, they don't have, it's ages since I've seen a shot window like that, and I thought we could kind of build something quite nice. Then resolution 3 is a television. She's watching television about baptism, and he turns it off, and his reflection stays behind, but it's not him, it is X. Resolution 4, I mixed up Taro script and Richard's script because I liked the cornflakes and whiskey and pills. Resolution 5, Clive the hippie. I can't remember what this reference from Taro, but I mean, there is a thing like if you start spinning out when you're meditating or being mindful, it can be quite a disturbing experience. And I thought we could have this reflection in a glass of fluid. The glass of fluid could be weird as well, or it could be just water. And that's the X character. Resolution 6, standing on the shore of a lake. He sees the character in the glassy surface. A stone plops and breaks the image. Res 7, this is an important clip. I wasn't sure whether to have it here or somewhere else, but and there's a couple of things going on here. Like you got him in the mirror with all the characters in his head, and so this is where he invents TV game show. So it kind of cuts to him, kind of like POV of the camera, and he's just kind of inviting somebody behind the curtain, and we mock up some crazy kind of scene. Maybe like a Last Supper table with all the characters sat behind. And this is the green room where the TV show is going to take place. Clive speaks to one persona, cut to that persona or something to reveal that. I'm not sure about that scene at all, but it's doing a job. It's just not a very nice scene. It's a bit confused. Resolution 8 is Clive peering into the bathroom window. X character looks back at him, breathing weirdly, nodding. Clive nods and plunges his head into the water. The screen fills with bubbles and screams. Resolution 9 is Clive hosting his own successful imaginary TV show. And when he looks at himself in the monitor, he sees X character. But this is the very final clip where everybody's gone. So I don't know. This still needs some work. But kind of thematically, I think this was starting to come together as a sequence of backstory, notable, inciting incidents, and Clive's life and characters resolving. We've got to get the Red Ball story in, so I've just got it as a kind of voiceover from Richard's script, and yeah, I've got it ending with a custard pie fight, but that's just a bit of a daft idea. And maybe Clive doesn't resolve, or there's some questions at the end. But yeah, I mean that's what I sort of put together, and I'm quite sort of happy with it in some ways. But what are your thoughts?
We haven't got it. I just wrote, what do we see? What is it? What are we watching? But yeah, that's to be written.
There's also some jiggery pokery around the phone going that way or that way, which we have to figure out a bit better as well.
Mirror intro, animation into the game, phone turn, import. Yeah, same thing. What is it? Pick a character, the duo rounds. Yeah, recuperating in bed. I mean, I like this. I like all the kids stuff. I think it works. And it is poignant as well. So, but is it like
But this is the bit that we're suggesting we might move into the res clips anyway. This bit.
But is it? I mean, I'm just pedantic notes, I suppose. But is then we're not hearing specific words. It's just the sound of a row. So there's that disconnect already with Clive and what's happening.
I mean, we need to nail down that backstory a little bit better. I thought that we might benefit at some point from a scene with his brother later, but that's, I don't know. I mean, that I also have to keep a mind on budget and
just
how the hell we're going to do all of this.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Have you got a budget? You know,
tiny budget, tiny.
Yeah, because it's like you know, I mean, I did wonder about the multiple screen and old fashioned shop. I think it'd look great, but I was thinking, how are you going to do that? Obviously, SFX.
I think that's, in a way, that's kind of one of the easiest ones as a special effect.
Yeah.
I mean, the hardest thing is going to be walking through the streets and getting reactions. Him being weird and getting reaction shots of people, which is like It's just fivers and like release forms. Like you just find people who are game who are going to go, and we just get real people on the street going, like turning away from him, so that he's like striding through the streets like, tell Seth fucking, and then we just get all of these people reacting to. Who really wants to feel like he is in real life, and really it's fivers or tenors and release forms to get those people who are going to be in the game.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, that, because
and then special effects, like it gets to a shop window and that's just all like cut out and it's a special effects shop built with like TVs and monitors and cameras and crazy shit all over the place.
And then the when you cut to, he's making things by cutting again. I think that's just one his first, the first cut, or maybe that's two at that stage. I don't know. So there's like, just so that we know what's going on without.
Yeah, we're gonna have to move that around for sure, I think. But yes, I get what you're saying for sure. I think that would be more powerful, especially if it's kind of, then we have this kind of, these characters as they resolve, they are seen or heard or whatever in the resolution clips.
Yeah, and then so the fail I think's good.
But it's weird. I mean that's like, if you fail, Clive gets a phone in his head. So I'm not sure if that's the right thing, really. I mean, it seemed like a good idea, and then when I wrote it, when I cut and pasted all of this together, it seemed less of a good idea to have it here. But I do really like the clip, and we could find another way to use it potentially.
Actually, it's more of a Clive fail, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So it could go in the resolution clips and we move those things around. I mean, having a bit more to play with at the moment than we need is a good thing, because we don't know exactly how much we're going to need and where this stuff is going to be best used. So we have to be a tiny bit broad as well as quite specific.
Right, and then into the resolutions. Again, that thing about police interview. I think that again is, we don't want to know what the incident is, so it's all that unheard or distorted voices.
Yeah.
So it's him just again disconnected.
Yep.
Res 2. Yeah, this is, I just put a question mark and a pound sign. And then Res 3, I think again this is overcooked. I think it's just a bit of, I don't know whether you can get stock footage of just like, you know, those people who, not those, there's the ones with snakes, aren't there, as well? And then there's the one, these highly religious evangelicals in Deep South, and then there's the totally they immerse you completely, don't they? And then they bring you back up and you're born again. I think you just need to show that. People are going to get it. I don't think you need to have a narrator.
Yeah, we have to have the reflection. That's the only thing. But yeah. Yeah, sorry, I see what you're saying, the narrator in the show. We could just, we just have the footage or whatever.
Res 4, can you say Peppa Pig?
No, you can't. But it's just because in Taro's script he is watching it. He has the pills and the cornflakes and the whiskey, and he's eating that, watching telly. That's his breakfast. And in your clip, he does the code.
No, I think it's good. I think maybe it's just another, obviously some weird sound effects from a children's program just droning.
Yeah, I thought they would be watching something on the tablet, but then I'm just,
I don't think you even need to see the kid. You know, it's just,
no, you just hear it.
Yeah. And then it's as is. Then 5, I think that I'm not quite sure why he's a hippie, but he's obviously doing the meditating.
I thought maybe he was trying to get his shit together in the second act, but things play out slightly differently for Clive than he might have otherwise thought. I kind of thought, yeah, I mean, we could also move the things around so that when he has to kind of invent the mirror as a way of keeping the characters in his head, I don't know how to visually represent that. I kind of saw it in one way that he is like inviting the camera in, like come in through the curtain. Here you are. This some kind of like spiel. So it's just kind of him in a sparkly suit and a bow tie or whatever as the kind of he's making the game show. He's inviting you in as one of the characters, and then you're trapped. And that. But if that comes earlier in, then the kind of hippie stuff and the lake stuff makes a bit more sense. He's kind of gets some peace before the wheels start to come off and things start to unravel again in a more serious way, perhaps. If it needs that kind of like narrative arc.
Yeah. 6, yep. 7, yep. Yeah, the
So
game
that's
show
the
thing.
start
The
of the
game,
mirror. Yeah.
the game show thing. Yeah, yeah. I think I've never really quite got it, but I think it is like it puts all his world into some sort of context, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah, because he has the characters.
Yeah,
For us to play the game, he has to trap the characters. So he invents the game show in his own head, and the characters all are trapped in there. Then when we play, like if we didn't show up, the characters just play forever. And then we show up and we start clearing them. They start kind of winning. And obviously Clive is enraged. It's not in his plan at all. But by us resolving them, he reaches some kind of resolution, both good and bad. And we need to understand, I guess after that is when we start to get more of the backstory. I guess.
yeah. 8 and 9. Oh yeah, when you say Clive is hosting his successful imaginary TV show, a la Rupert Pupkin, may or may not be the mirror game. What does that? That's just confusing to me.
Yeah. I'm sorry. These are the reasons why I knew you'd hate this document. Because I haven't really sorted it out. I just did I worked it out yesterday and I've hack and slashed it together this morning.
Yeah, we just want one game, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it would be, I think, the mirror. I think he is the host of the mirror, but he's not in the mirror all the time. The mirror is a loop that happens, but he is kind of trapped people, entrapped people, and maybe sometimes he is a game show host in his own mind. I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's my. I mean, I only read it briefly, but that's my.
Yeah.
Feedback.
And then we've got the NDE stuff, and then we've got how we resolve ourselves, Clive, and the characters in a bigger way or not.
Who's CH?
Character.
Oh, right, okay.
Personas, I think, is the most common, the best kind of description of them. They've been the reflections. There's some kind of schools of psychological thought that would call them exiles, but I think personas is good. I like reflections more, but I think it's more confusing personally.
Yeah.
Personas is like what it is, and it's manageable as
that's understandable. Yeah. Multiple personas.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's all good if you kind of understand it, and I think your notes are all good. How are you with it, Taro?
Yeah, I mean the main thing The only thing I really thought was the stuff with Clive as a kid should probably go somewhere near the end, but then if that's becoming a resolution scene, that's not really a problem.
Yeah. I'd really just slammed it in there because I didn't know where to put it. I think in the next week or so, as Joe finishes the demo of the duo round, we understand like what we're going to feel when we get to that with the context we know is around it with the story. We can start to figure out, because I think we want Clive to interject in the game, but ultimately we're going to want to probably do it as much as possible in voiceover, because if we have to keep going back and filming stuff, there's going to be stuff that probably comes up as we're finessing, and I don't think we can anticipate all of the material we're going to need from Neil at this stage, but we do need to nail these visual clips, because if he gets a big film and goes off for 6 months, we're really in like quite a lot of deep water with this. So I'm hoping he gets some work, but not like the big gig. I hope he doesn't get a call from Scorsese.
I think in the I mean, this is just a thought. The marketing clips. What about some of the you could put in young Clive making the things, or making one of them, just so there's a bit more variety in the clips.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that we can possibly get the stuff filmed in a way like we can write the scenes so they're a bit bigger than we need, so we've got some extra material to play around with. Definitely. But so, I mean, if we're all sorry, go
on. The reveal at the end as TV host, that chunk.
It's wrong place, wrong format.
How
it
is
might
it?
be spreading around a bit, and the visuality of the red ball will be interesting. I mean, we were talking yesterday about like this whole thing with the mirror cracking and breaking through and all that sort of thing. We've also got the ice and like the mirror, like tapping the ice until it breaks is very similar, but we've got to understand the context, and we got to know that it's, for the moment, it's going to be flexible, because it's all about getting the right kind of interaction and feeling as the player alongside all of this unfolding narrative and crazy characters. So, but yeah, so there's a lot of things in play. But I mean, in order to shore this up a bit, I mean, I could take another pass at it, and then maybe you and I could go through it in detail, Richard, whilst conferring with Taro. But in terms of writing some visual scenes, that's probably the best thing, because Taro's kind of quite deep into the development with Joe, and as long as we're all in the loop, I think it'll be fine. But I think the best use of time would be for you and me, Richard, to try and nail this stuff down.
I think so.
With Taro so that it fits with the game.
And yeah, just just get feedback as well. Keep it going around, because excellent.
Yeah. Cool, but I think it's good. I think it's really good progress. Then there's also like trying to tie it back to budget a little bit, but some of this stuff, I mean, some of this stuff could work quite well on the cheap, I think. I need to do some tests of like how to get these kind of reflection shots and paste characters in and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of things to try and figure out, but I think content wise, we've got the frame, we've got the character, we've got loads of good scenes. I think it's going to work to tie it with video scenes that resolve the characters that you've just done, and the Clive story is unfolding, gives the people reason to keep playing. And yeah, I mean, if we can end up with like a 2-hour game out of this, that's really like there's this kind of structure that is exciting to play, and the story's like totally mind-blowing about this crazy guy who got stuck under the ice and became a complete psycho with all these characters in his head. I'm in.
I was thinking as well, if we can get, I mean, the stuff with Clive as a kid, the like drawings or like the cutouts that he makes, if we could get them to use as assets, that would be good as well.
Yeah, there's a few bits and pieces, isn't there, that we can use.
Oh, it's horrible pain. And then
Oh,
tries to have a conversation with you to distract you. So your voice say up and down like that. It's definitely getting better though.
right, cool.
Oh,
I'm thinking of making a pack of playing cards to sell with like 6 gags from each character, and you pick a character and you play. I think it's definitely going to work. I need to test it.
as in clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds.
Well,
Or
each character. No, you got like you're either the taxi driver or the ghost or whatever.
yeah,
So that is the backside of it. But then that's 2 cards with the data on. Means we've got to lock the data though. That's one thing, like the scoring, which governing the scoring and balancing that could be a problem. But I don't know. I'd like to try it. I'm going to try it anyway. I just thought it'd be quite a nice thing, and yeah. I mean, I'm also thinking of a book as well. So this has like the gag data on it per character, 6 of them. The book would have like all of the text of the gags with the images from the gags as well. Coffee table book. Just thinking away because Eugene, the marketing guy, wants to raise money to pay for adverts, which get people on the list and get people to buy it. You need money for the advertising. We've only got like a couple of grand in the budget. We could probably do with more. Because when that's working, you should be able to push money in and get a certain amount of sales from it. You can kind of measure such things and A/B test and create the best adverts and all that sort of thing. So
have you thought about t-shirts?
yeah, but I think we want to lead with the characters' images up front. We don't want to see their names. We can see their names within the game once we get in there, but it just wants to be Clive is a good guy, the taxi driver. Clive is a good guy, the future self kind of thing. And you see Senna, I think, so people can start aligning with different characters. Each character will have their own page on the website, a bit similar to what we have. You can buy a t-shirt or a mug from each one, and there's a book containing all of the gags, perhaps, and like there's a card game that uses all the gags as well. These are the things that I'm sort of to figure out.
So you can buy your favorite character, can't you? Your favorite character t-shirt, but also just the name Clive is a good guy. Just that as a brand is good, isn't it? Or is it just a t-shirt on it?
And if we were to go on to the cloud with this as a sort of game, it makes perfect sense.
Merch.
Yeah, merch and further play. I think card game play is like really. I think if you have a card and it has like at the moment we have like percentage likelihood of success of that gag winning. You've got antagonism against the other character. You've got your merit, how much you're going to score. If you make the cards, people will find different ways to play it. Like, because all good card games, people are flexible about it, aren't they? They make it like that. This is the house rules or the kind of Australian rules or whatever. There's always different ways. So keeping it really flexible and simple for the audience to play, I think, is really cool.
Is there any value in making it collectible? So you buy packets of cards like Magic the Gathering or stuff like that?
Possibly, but there is other things like making it you could have the cards or the book and leave space for people to write their own data in.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we want people to put that data in online, and that's aggregated and becomes the game scoring mechanism is provided by the crowd. Perhaps, but obviously we don't want it to fuck up. There's loads of options, but what I have to do is define high resolution images for all of the characters, and then utilize that to start making some mock-ups of this stuff.
Yeah. I like the idea of getting a little pack of cards with a little Chinagraph pencil or something like that, so you can put your data, then rub it off if it's wrong, then change it, and so that really drags you in, doesn't it? It's not a one-off thing; it's continually tweaking.
Yeah, but then
your
some
own
people would
pack.
prefer it. Well, I guess you could have it both ways, couldn't you? You
Yeah,
could have it so that you have a pack that has the game data on. I wish we could fucking lock that down like tomorrow, because we could make the cards by next week and be selling them. But I know that the balancing could be hugely problematic, but I'm pushing Taro and Joe to try and get on that, and so we understand it. But yeah, and then you could have a version of, like you say, like of the cards with a Sharpie or a Chinograph or whatever. So you put your own data onto it. That's a different.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, we'll see. There's a few things sort of floating around, but the most important thing is to try and define the imagery at high resolution, because I'm just
yeah.
relinking all of the projects, trying to get lead images, whether they be from photographs or the web or whatever. The lead image. Have I shown you the lead image that we're using? We've
No,
we've
unless
changed
I've missed it.
we've changed a few things actually. Like the style sheet is all I'll just show you while we're on, because it's interesting and kind of useful to know. Do I have it here? Probably easier online. The style guide, like all public facing stuff, only has one font. We're not using two fonts. But the mirror has its own font, but the forward facing Clive stuff is all just one font. We've also got a new trailer style guide. And the font is called Barlow. It's a free font. So you can see it there.
Yeah,
And what I did at the weekend, I was like, because these are images from photographs. So I then went into After Effects and I made a version of this with moving images, and it looked absolutely amazing.
oh right, okay, yeah.
Really, really, really cool. So yeah, this is this is our lead product shot at the moment, and I can make video versions of it, and it looks good. This is some other stuff just that's been developed. So like social cards. Can't really see that in too much detail, but yeah, this font is really nice, and it kind of
Yeah,
all
it looks good like that. Yeah, Clive's a good guy, definitely all in one.
Yeah, although when I see it, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I'm not conclusive on whether it's a handle or 5 separate words. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know, but we've got all the options, and as long as people are getting it as this is Clive, that's the main thing. But yeah, the style guide is looking good. Sorry, I can't remember how we got onto that, but anyway.
I can't either. No, there's some changes that I haven't seen. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I did see on this thing you've got new style thoughts.
Well, the new style thoughts in terms of videos is that we've been writing nice scenes, and to do them justice in video, there's all sorts of fancy ideas, but I'm not sure if I can do it. I'm not sure if I've got the resources to make like the resources and like locations, like even if we look at what we've got here, which is kind of ratified to the new style guide, I just thought like, of using green, like shooting Neil for all this stuff on green screen and then comping it up and almost like treating it as little design interactive animations from the beginning and then just adding shit to it, rather than like, this is the film shoot now. We've got to film here in certain ways, in a bathroom, in the mirror, in a bed as a boy, at a lake or a canal, watching TV, city streets, police, interview room, in the toilet, in the mirror, in a game show. If we have to shoot these in high definition, it would be great. I mean, I'd love to do it, but you could spend 50 grand on it and like just without missing a beat, really. And we certainly haven't got that money. And can we do something a bit more kind of zany with a different style, different flavor of video? I mean, the video we've got is small, but it's like looks really punchy and nice. But then, is there a way of using kind of different distortions and layers and graphics? I guess I'll have to demo it. But
so if you shoot, but you're shooting everything he does on green screen
with this new idea, yes.
Yeah.
But my initial thought was we're going to do this like as filmic shoots, like widescreen, HD, really nice camera. But then it's going to take days and loads of money, and I just don't know. I don't know how to find the money for it at the moment. I mean, I can, but yeah, I don't know. So I'm thinking of a much more sort of cut and paste photocopy kind of style with like real motion video, but kind of distorted and obviously layered. Kind of filming half the face on a green screen and then pasting stuff into the green screen and just creating a different type of footage. I don't know if it's the right idea or not, but that's a way of kind of dealing with the cost and resource issue.
Yeah, that's what I thought what was the approach anyway. I might have missed the beat somewhere, but I thought that was the approach. Purely because otherwise, as you said, it's 30 to 50k shoots.
It could easily be, yeah. Well, I mean, let's see if the script is making sense.
Yeah.
And then if it is, I'll try and figure it out and do some tests. Because even a cut and paste, like using like the basic camera that I've got here and some green screen, it won't take long to see if that's kind of got a flavor to it and whether it's going to work. And ultimately that's like testing it is better than planning for like some big old shoot, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've kept the intro with the tunnels. I don't know why, it just kind of came to me.
I quite like tunnels. It's like rabbit holes, isn't it? And
yeah, I also thought like if you've got two, like you're looking at a road here, you're looking at a road here with cars kind of streaming past. You're basically here, and there's two underpass tunnels, and like Clive's here acting really weird. So you go to this tunnel, and he comes over this side, and we kind of do it with a mirrored full body animation. So then you get to that side, he comes over here, and then you discover a sort of trick by which you can get into there, and then you just down the rabbit hole, whoosh, and you end up in the mirror, choose your character, and then you're wiping them off, and then you're in the mirror game. It's really simple. I think partly the underpass thing, to me, like I've got a sense of Clive being like a nutter on the streets. Part of this, I'm not sure if for good or bad, but that's part, I think, is what's going on for me as I'm trying to write this stuff.
I've always seen him as that. I think
as a possibility or a multiverse reality. I don't know.
I think I think I've always seen him as that type of person who's a troubled soul, I suppose, but it was a bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And you learn more about him. He's obviously more than that. There's obviously more going on. There's reasons why he's like this, etc., etc. You discover all that.
I think so, because I do have some issues as we're going along, just in terms of that 53-year-old male and the kind of like, in a way, some of this kind of script and idea suggests that he is somebody who has lost control, whereas a 50-year-old white male is one of the most powerful figures in the world. If you look at the community of the world, I mean, he's not. And there's like, I worry about what we're representing in a way. But then he's not a black guy. He's not a woman. He's not a Chinese guy. He is a white guy because we wrote it for Neil. And I think we can't worry too much about getting cancelled or the way that we are portraying him. We just have to provide a really deep, rich story, and I think we're most of the way to having that. But I'm just talking about my fears as I've been working on it really in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. Yeah, it is on the face of it. Yeah, 53-year-old white guy, angry, toxic, if you like.
Yeah.
And people will go, "Oh yeah, fuck that." But then the argument is, well, you've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
You've only you're a fascist if you if you cancel at that stage. You're a fucking idiot, and all that you can do that. I think
totally.
Yeah.
But it's just, I'm just sort of just kind of dealing with the demons of it as I'm sort of working my way through it a bit, really.
Yeah. Okay, so right, the intro, I think the tunnel. So it's like a game of
working. Yeah.
It's a game of chase, isn't it? And double in one way, make you fall over, and then you run in, don't you? Something like that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think tunnels to me suggest the mind. I don't know why, the labyrinths of the mind and all that. So
yeah,
that works for me.
Okay, I like it, and I think I'm just going to take some photographs, paste Neil on in some weird animation, and do some kind of crazy sort of voiceover, and just like riff it and just develop it till it's right, and try and keep it like super fresh on screen and interactive, not too composed, if you know what I mean. Just like try and keep it really punchy and fresh.
I think he just has to say, when you move to one side, he jumps in, he just says, "Fuck off." And then you go the other way, just "Fuck off." I just said, "Fuck off, will you?" And then it's like, because that is sometimes the unfortunates that, you can stumble across in the street. So
totally.
It's a very unnerving experience. So
you need to get past, and that's what you do. And then you go into the other side, which is actually inside his mind, but you're on one side of the mirror from Clive. Yeah. No, I like it. And I think that kind of approach is good. And a fuck off is great. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then it's so then you're in and you're playing, you choose your character and you play and you hopefully resolve them. I've added in the idea that halfway through, we might want to drop a clip to keep people's interest up, really, and keep the story unfolding. But I don't know if that's the right thing. I'm just sort of.
Where's that?
So at the moment, like the game is the card game. Well, it's not. It's like the duo rounds as we had them, played a bit like Top Trumps.
Yeah.
So you're playing as one character and you're trying to get that person through. If you fail, you get in fact, I didn't put the fail clip, did I, in here? Okay, I need to add the fail clip. So the fail clip I've now got so that it is that sequence of Clive ignoring email messages and the fact that his phone's battery is problematic. He gets a link to a porn site. So you see this. So you if you fail, you're with Clive, and then the phone explodes, but then it's your character who has a phone sticking out with Clive on. So just to flip that around and keep it like a weird fail clip. But yeah, if you play as a character and you go through the duo rounds, it's not particularly long, I don't think it's going to be. But basically then once you got through the duo rounds, you have freed your character from the mirror game. So that's at that point, you're going to then start the next part, which is the second half of the game each way through, is you kind of playing against Clive and against maybe characters that he pits against you. And it's the idea that in that middle bit there, we could drop like these resolution clips could be split into two. So there's more kind of intrigue leading us to the end. It's not super important. at this stage. It's just understanding that it might be good to have a video there. Maybe
But
it's not the right thing. I don't.
I mean, these resolutions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're not linear, are they?
They are meant to be linear. The characters who paste on are not, can come on in any order.
Yeah.
We could sequence it. I think it makes sense to have them as linear because we're telling a specific story. But we don't have to necessarily fully make that decision right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not sure. When I was awake in the night, I was wondering if starting with the boy is the right thing to do. But
It feels too on the nose to me. That it feels like, my note is bit linear. Mix it up.
it might be a strength to play linear, though. I don't know. I totally get it. I mean, that's what my intuition is telling me, that it's too on the nose. But I don't know for sure.
Yeah. And then Res 2.
So I thought Canal is more sort of city based, and I've got him sort of lying on the towpath, like looking in, maybe lying on the towpath and looking up at the sky, and then flipping that around and then looking down and seeing him looking into the water, and then finding his reflection, but the reflection isn't him, it's character X, which is, well, it would be RPR.
Yeah. I think you said you weren't sure about 2. It does feel a bit, I don't know. Is there something else? Is there something else that?
Well, what I wanted to do was, like, I was thinking eminently linear at one point, and so I wanted to sort of have that sort of netherworld of kind of growing up from schools and being unemployed, and have kind of some reference to British institutions, and have those spaces with kind of characters on our characters on the wall, a bit like a piece of video art in a way. But again, that felt like a nothing clip, really. I mean, when I started thinking about it, like this week, I was thinking about, okay, so I'm going to break it down and I'm going to make it linear. I'm going to have, so after the accident, because we're going to reveal the accident later, but we start the story with Clive as a boy inventing characters. Then he's alienated. Then he's escaping. Then there's further alienation. Then there is the thing that he's highly developed these characters as a way of being in the world. Then he needs to invent the mirror to trap them. And then we get the Red Ball story, which is the near-death experience. But all the time this is happening, you're freeing all of the characters from the mirror anyway. So it's kind of like, at the end, I don't know how much of a mixed feeling or a mixed blessing we're going to have, but
Yeah. Okay, and Res 3, Escape.
Res 3, Escape is pills, whiskey, drugs, and TV.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to cut his family, cut his kid and all that. I think it's just too much, too confusing.
And keeping it really simple and about him, and leaving a lot to the imagination. I think we have to see him inventing the characters, and that happens in bed. So, but simple, like really simple. There's a boy in bed inventing characters. We find out later why he's in bed and what a kind of crucial, kind of crazy moment in his life this is. 2 being alienation, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't quite say alienation. I want people to really understand that he is cut off from himself, his family, what people think is normal. This guy is cut off from. That's what I was trying to get to. but the clip that is at 2 is really a nothing. Escape with drugs and daytime TV, it's quite simple. That kind of works. But get the 2 doesn't really set it up correctly, I think. But
I mean, I like the stuff in the first draft about a baptism. And if
three
that's
or 2.
Sorry, in Res 3, but I2. So that thing that catches his attention on the telly,
Yeah,
stops him dead in his tracks. If it was someone being like,
right. Yeah, totally. I totally go for that.
and you don't need any. You just need to see that image. You don't need to see anything else. You don't need any. Has he got daytime TV on mute? And he's just listening to voices in his head. I don't know. And then it's
there's a lot of water, isn't there? Like not in the first clip, but like Res 2 is water, Res 3 is water with the baptism.
Well, I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think it is, yeah, because he nearly died. He nearly died in water.
Maybe 2 does work because it's the first time kind of in a way, first time we see him as an adult in the world. And I think it's kind of like an innocent. I mean, he's not a younger man because we've only got Neil at 53, but his placement in my kind of timeline of Neil is this is somebody who has less cares than when we kind of meet him right now, but he is becoming alienated. He's just not kind of alienated. He's just on his own near water, which is hardly like a good alienation scene. But maybe an alienation scene you need to be.
Is he chased off or? That's always a thing, isn't it? If you see, maybe that's too much, too difficult anyway. You want him to see him chased off by someone.
Well, I think there's ways to do it. I can do that on the green screen. Like I'm planning to do city street stuff on the green screen and just go and shoot some city streets and a shot window, which will then become 3D. I'm keeping it like super, super simple.
Yeah.
So yeah, he could be chased off. Then we've got the drugs and the baptism. 3 in escape. Number 4 is the city streets and the screen.
Yeah, this is shot reactions to Clive stomping through the streets. Yeah, so this is just like doing his voices or whatever. Clive stomping.
He's full on crazy at this point.
So, yeah.
And such.
So that's the TV sets, isn't it?
Yeah, in the window where we see, whichever character is resolved.
I mean, the other thing I thought about that scene, which I know you can't do it, but in John Lewis, where they have like 50 screens, all different sizes, maybe not 50, but maybe about 20, and like it just, if you walked in there and just saw that image of whoever it is,
see himself, and then then it just go, L somebody going, ouch indeed, or Tell going, it's all just shit in the pipes.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing, totally, like with loads of screens all stacked up. Maybe it's a second-hand screenshot, so they are a bit more kind of jumbled. But yeah, I think it's the idea that Clive among people is completely fucking insane.
Yeah.
We resolve it with him coming to a stop and seeing this character instead of himself.
So then it's 5.
So 5 is a 2-way mirror, and I want to do like a Hall of Mirrors trick where this is the characters have become so developed and they're almost like having conversations without him. I don't know, but yeah, I kind of like this scene, but I mean, don't know if it does its job for it. I don't know.
In the room with Clive, see detail, and then other characters focused on Hall of Mirrors trick. To me, it felt like whoever the RPR is, and it does. I don't know, for some reason, it feels like Jeanette, or whatever her name is, just because she used to be a wasn't she to do with the police and the backstory or something?
Retired policeman, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's, I don't know. I mean, maybe they don't even say anything, but to me, it feels like she's saying, don't say a dicky bird, all coppers are bastards, or something like that. So
Yeah, but this is like Clive scene, and when he looks in the mirror, like people are looking at him
yeah,
through the two-way mirror. I think Clive is in the room, and he's somehow he's kind of terrified that these characters are getting too developed and they're going to leave him. And then so he's sitting on the side, like on a table. When he turns to the mirror, like the two-way mirror where the cops are behind, he turns to that, and then we cut to like in the mirror is whichever one of the 9 have just resolved.
yeah, and I think that works. I quite like the idea you don't even know why he's there.
Yeah,
but
it's more down the path of badness, isn't it?
Yeah, but or I mean, we've seen walking down a street, angry, stomping, whatever. So I think cops would pick you up for that these days.
Yeah, I mean, as a mini narrative, it kind of works. If you start with Boy invents characters, as a man, he's alienated. He takes drugs. He's like in the city streets being like very leery and very mad. Then he's in the cop shop. Then he's in the mirror, which is this is more madness. He's in the mirror and he invents the game show because he sees all the characters in his own head. And then the Red Ball story is his as a game show. Sort of the song of the story is him explaining what really happened.
Yeah.
Monologue sort of thing. So that's a crazy little narrative on its own, I think.
Yeah. And to me, you can, I reckon, as a viewer, not as a player, but as a viewer, you see all these clips. I think you can see them in any order and piece it together. Maybe you want to save the Red Ball as an ending.
Red Ball for the end. Well, so
I think if you
1 to 6 are like res, 1 to 6 random.
Yeah, I reckon. I mean, I know that's it's like yeah, I think so. I think if you see if you try it out, the first one, interview police room, you think what's going on? It's intriguing, it draws you in. And then if the next one is a kid cutting out figures, that's still like what's going on.
Yeah.
It holds you in. And then when you see Clive stomping down a street, people running out of his way, okay, yeah, nutter, probably that's why he's arrested. Who's the kid? It's like, and then I think random would be good.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm game for that. And then at the ending,
yeah,
after res 7, then there are 2 characters left, and I'm wondering what we want the audience to do there, and I have no idea really, but I like the idea of leaving somebody in the mirror, because then you can go, you play again, and you might want to save that character first. You just another reason to play again. You couldn't save them all. One was left behind.
Is there any little, like, a bit of foreshadowing somewhere we could drop in, like Clive saying, just don't leave me alone, never leave me on my own, or something like that?
Could be. I mean, could you trick Clive into staying in the mirror, and then he's in the mirror in his own head
as the game show host?
Yeah. Or not. I mean, the thing is, I think it's really hard to second guess what the audience is going to feel as a player until we get to this point, because we've got some kind of quite sort of emotionally nuanced materials that will be sequencing through, depending on which character you're on. We're going through similar kind of stuff. So understanding what the audience is going to feel at that point, I think it's not difficult to get to the end. And the other thing about having a more flexible approach to the creation, like the new style stuff, means that we can be flexible for longer in terms of putting this stuff together. It worries me, like locking it down, because it's also bloody experimental, really.
I think you have to lock it down at some point.
Yeah. Okay, well, I will rewrite this stuff and then put it to you. But I think we're in a reasonably good place. It's sort of starting to work. It's not too prescribed.
I think, what you've got on the very last line, use of Red Bull in the game and video. You know what I see? I see that, the Red Bull bounce, when you have sing-along prompts in cinemas.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, isn't it?
I also what I'd like to see, this again was in the middle of the night, like a frozen lake with a red ball just bouncing along in it. Like, I want to see that. I think it's an important part of the visual story. And I guess you could do it in 3D. I was there in the night. I was like, do I put a poster on Upwork for people in frozen parts of the world that they've got to film a red ball on a frozen lake?
Yeah.
I think it can be done much easier. But I'm also thinking about a red ball in the app, and like all of a sudden it says tilt your phone, and you do that, and the red ball just goes.
Yeah.
And you don't know why at that point in time, but obviously it starts to appear with more.
Yeah, and then it has meaning later on.
Yeah. We're actually on a tilt, because we're asking people to tilt their phone, like when the widescreen video is on.
Or is there a little game that you have to do that and get the ball into a hole in a lake in the ice? That's where then you go through it and then you cut to, I don't know, screaming and bubbles.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have.
So many things you can think of, aren't there?
There are. I mean, I haven't totally nailed the. In fact, Res 7 is a bit kind of weird in terms of its visuality, but I guess I was just. And then the other thing is, like, the idea of being under the water and seeing the ice is a bit like looking in the mirror, and maybe somebody's smashing it from the other side and it's breaking, because ultimately somebody saves you, and who is that somebody? All those things are kind of questions for me. Not that we need to know the answer to them all, but just they're questions that I'm asking.
I think it was, I mean, story-wise, it was dog walkers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who see what happens.
I'm slightly disappointed that the brother goes away to a nut house and we never see or hear from him again. But I guess quite a lot of work to bring him back in, both, well, in lots of different ways. It's difficult.
Or the other, yeah. I mean, the other thing is you could, which could, I don't know why I didn't think this, it could tie in even more, is the two of them go out and the brother leads him. And then they both go through and only one comes out. That's like the birth thing, isn't it? And all that. And
twin brother, maybe?
The big brother, yeah, they both walk out. Because he's going, come on, don't be scared, don't be just chicken or whatever.
There's something ultimately so cruel, but like a kid does that sort of thing without thinking about the consequences. It feels so fucking real that an elder brother like throw the ball out onto the lake.
Yeah.
Go on, you go and get it. And that's it. It's just like a simple childish mistake.
Yeah.
And it kind of destroys fucking like so much. I just think that's like such a real situation that I worry about getting too far away.
No,
from
no, I think it is good. I think it does work, and I think it's it's does he to the I mean, does it split? It obviously splits the family. Does is it is half not half half brother? So it's like no, it's too complicated. I think just keeping it like that. You don't even need to know the outcome
Yeah.
in years to come because well, we're experiencing the outcome,
Yeah.
the trauma of it, and
Well, let me further develop this based on our notes
yeah,
today. I'll run it to you. If we need to update any of the backstory, we can.
yeah,
But I think we're covering most things, and we can be flexible. And when stuff starts to really work in terms of these clips, we can lean into that, and it might change things at that stage. Like, and if we've got Neil doing stuff on green screen, it's not difficult to change like some of this stuff around. Not
yeah,
like a big problem, really.
yeah.
Like you
Okay.
said, get rid of the family was good. So it's all just Clive. There's not much stuff with other people. But
I think that's good. It's his story that we it's his story, and then we play in his head.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what do you think? You're going to rewrite this? When do you think you can?
Have a look. I'll do it tomorrow and send it over.
Okay.
I think. Let me just check my